Hello friends, in the previous few lectures we have been attempting to rather describe the stable state of a system using the thermodynamic functions and the corresponding variables. So essentially in our generalized discussion our aim was to rather describe a change in the state of the system using thermodynamic functions. Now, after gaining sufficient understanding of the generalized concept of thermodynamics, we focused or narrowed down our focus to the material system, and here in the few lectures we have been considering how the thermodynamic functions help us rather identify the stable state of a given material. So in order to do that, we began with considering a thermodynamic function which is the Gibbs free energy. Now, the change in the Gibbs free energy is expressed as the combination of the change in the temperature and the change in the pressure. So our approach was, instead of treating this expression numerically and then use this expression to identify which state for a given material is stable, we rather approached it in an illustrative manner. So what we mean by that is, we instead of treating it or instead of considering a set of derivations, we rather plotted the change in the thermodynamic function with respect to its temperature but consistent with this relation. So we considered the simplistic case of change in the state of the system with respect to temperature, and we changed separately the change in the state of the system with respect to pressure and then combined these two. So even though we have taken a roundabout way of discussing the relation between the thermodynamic function and the related variables using graphical illustration, we ensure that no aspect of this particular expression is lost. Now, when we consider the change in the Gibbs free energy with respect to temperature, we ensure that the curve that related the Gibbs free energy with respect to the temperature had a negative slope, and this slope it referred, or when we considered the quantified the slope, it related to the entropy, and this slope is nothing but the first derivative of the Gibbs free energy with respect to the temperature. And when we consider the higher order derivative, that is the second derivative of the Gibbs free energy with respect to temperature, it yielded us the change in the entropy with respect to temperature, and that also progressively varied with respect to the temperature. So it means both the slope and the curvature of this curve that relates the Gibbs free energy and the temperature changes. In addition to that, we saw this higher order derivative, that is the second derivative of the Gibbs free energy with respect to temperature, can be related to a material constant. So it means for a given state of a material, we need to have a specific curve that relates Gibbs free energy and temperature, because since we are rather focusing, so far have been focusing on a single category of the system, that is a system that comprises of a single form of a component. The states are largely solid, liquid and gas, and both entropy change and also the material constant, they vary with the state. So therefore we need to have separate curves for the different states that we are considering. So if this black curve represents, the solid black curve represents liquid, then the dash curve, it represents solid. So even though we took rather a straightforward or rather relatively simplistic approach of understanding the relation between the change in the Gibbs free energy with respect to temperature for a material system that can be found in two different states using graphical representation, we ensure that all the aspects of the expression are being found are being related to this illustration, and that means we have a negative slope first. When we consider the change in the Gibbs free energy with respect to temperature, we have a negative slope, and secondly the second derivative, that is the second derivative of the Gibbs free energy with respect to its temperature, which related to the heat capacity, is also varying with temperature. So it also is included in the curve, or it can be related to the curve. So when we do that, it means we need to have separate curves for the different states of the system. The system here is unary system or a unary material which comprises of which largely is made of single type of component. Now, so this is the first consideration where we assumed that the pressure is constant. Now, in the second consideration, we saw it is possible for us to build a similar curve where the temperature is constant and we are relating the Gibbs free energy to the pressure. Now, corresponding to the relation between the Gibbs free energy and the pressure, we need to have the curve that represents the change in the Gibbs free energy with respect to pressure needs to have a positive slope, and also the slope should be equivalent to that of the volume. And since the volume which rather governs the slope of the change in the Gibbs free energy with respect to pressure is significantly different for a unary material that is in solid state and is liquid state, we need to have, or the slope of these two states will be considerably different. So therefore, we need to have two different slopes like we had for the curve that represented change in the Gibbs free energy with respect to temperature. We need to have two different slopes for the different states or the two different states of the material. So, irrespective of which variable we consider and the relation we make it to that of the thermodynamic function, we need to ensure that this particular expression, the numerical expression or the critical aspects of it is being captured in this illustration. Now, after illustrating the change in the Gibbs free energy with respect to the temperature, largely ensuring that it is being captured or it reflects this expression here. Your illustration reflects this expression here after representing these two, both the change in the Gibbs free energy with respect to temperature and change in the Gibbs free energy with respect to pressure. By combining the second law or by imposing the second law of thermodynamics in this illustration, we were able to identify which phase or which state will be stable for a given condition. So the given condition in this case is the temperature and the given condition in this case is the pressure. So when we introduced the second law of thermodynamics, we found that the stable phase is the one that assumes the lowest Gibbs free energy. So therefore, when we track the section of these curves that relates the Gibbs free energy to the temperature and the ones that assume the lowest free energy, we were able to arrive at a plot, a curve that dictates which phase would be stable at a given temperature or at a given pressure. So, from this expression, based on this expression, we were able to arrive at two illustrations separately, and this illustration, it reflects this expression. Secondly, based on or introducing the second law of thermodynamics, we were able to identify sections of these curves that rather dictated which phase would be stable at a given condition. So under a given condition, which phase would be stable. Now in the previous lecture, what we essentially did was we combined these two expressions. So the reason we have just a two-dimensional representation, a curve that represents the change in the Gibbs free energy with respect to temperature and another curve that represents the change in the Gibbs free energy with respect to pressure, is because we have largely assumed one of the other variable to be constant. Now, when we consider a more generalized case of wherein rather both the variable changes, then a two-dimensional representation will not be possible. So we need to go for a three-dimensional representation. So when we go for a three-dimensional representation, that is pressure, temperature and Gibbs free energy, what we are essentially considering is, we are considering the change in the Gibbs free energy not with respect to temperature or pressure alone, but the combination of both temperature and pressure. So therefore, the curves that rather related Gibbs free energy to temperature and Gibbs free energy to pressure, in this case, wherein we are collectively considering the change in both temperature and pressure and how it rather influences the Gibbs free energy. What we have is, we have a plane, rather a curved plane, a surface that represents the change in the Gibbs free energy with respect to both pressure and temperature. So that is what we saw in our previous lecture. So we would have, again, this is purely schematic, we would have a surface. So let me use a different color. So we would have a surface that rather would indicate how the Gibbs free energy changes with respect to both pressure and temperature. So again, even though we have extended our consideration from a two-dimensional setup where here we just had one independent variable and a dependent variable. In both these cases there were one independent variable and the dependent variable. So here we have two independent variables. So even though we have extended our consideration from one independent variable to two independent variables, the principle governing the change in the Gibbs free energy, it remains the same, meaning the nature of how the Gibbs free energy changes with respect to temperature and pressure, it remains the same, meaning with increase in temperature, the Gibbs free energy rather decreases in a negative manner because the slope is negative, that is the entropy, or the slope is negative, and we have a similar dependency. The dependency of Gibbs free energy on the temperature remains the same, and similarly the dependency of the Gibbs free energy with respect to pressure, it remains the same. Even though we are combining these two, the dependency of Gibbs free energy and temperature and Gibbs free energy and pressure, it remains the same. The way it depends, the trend remains the same. However, in this case, depending on the interplay between both these factors, you would have a nature of the curve. So the nature of the curve, it depends on the interplay between the influence of temperature and pressure on the Gibbs free energy. So the temperature influences in a certain way the Gibbs free energy, the pressure influences the Gibbs free energy in a specific way. The combination of these two is what we observe in this three-dimensional condition. So the combination of these two is what gives you this curved surface. Now, in addition to this, what's other similarity that we observe when we relate these single variable consideration to that of the two independent variable consideration? So this is single independent variable consideration to the two independent variables consideration. One other similarity is that, like in these simplistic cases, we saw that for the different state of the system, we would have different curves. The same is true for this three-dimensional representation. Again, in two-dimensional cases, because of the nature of the curve, because of the nature of the way Gibbs free energy is related to temperature or pressure, we were forced to introduce two different curves to discuss the two different states of the system. The same remains true in three dimension as well, because the nature of the influence of the Gibbs free energy, or the nature of the influence or how Gibbs free energy is influenced by temperature and pressure, is going to remain the same. So therefore, even in the three-dimensional representation, we need to have different curved planes or different planes to discuss how these two variables influences the Gibbs free energy for a given state of the system. So for a given state of the system, you would have a specific curved surface, and for another system, or rather the another state of a given system, we would have another curved surface that rather dictates or that rather illustrates how both these variables influences the Gibbs free energy. So in a simpler case, for solid you would have a specific curve or a specific surface that dictates or that illustrates how the Gibbs free energy changes with temperature and pressure. For liquid, you would have another surface that illustrates how the Gibbs free energy would be influenced by the combination of temperature and pressure. Now, if we consider this blue surface to be solid, a red surface can be assumed to represent the change in the Gibbs free energy with respect to the combination of temperature and pressure. Now, the question is, one possibility of imagining this would be, I don't know, in some seasons, the streets of certain places, they are often covered, like in some festive season, the streets are often covered with some narrow alley, narrow streets, they are often covered with cloths. So when you have a narrow alley such as this, so imagine that you are living, this is a narrow alley. Alley is nothing but a street, so you are living in such a street, So here we have these buildings, and now during a festive season, so these are the streets, and yeah, so this is the street, and on both the side of the streets what you have is you have some buildings, yeah, and so this is your building. And during some festive season, what people usually do is they usually rather in some places they would rather cover, or they would rather spread cloths across these buildings. So it is not often from the roof to roof. It is also possible that they would spread these cloths from somewhere in between to the roof. So it is not often from roof to roof, but it is also possible they would also spread some cloths from the roof to somewhere in the first floor or so. So what essentially, I don't know if you could imagine, you have an alley, and on both the side of the alley, so you have a street, and both the side of the streets you have apartments, and now what essentially you are doing is you are connecting these apartments using some cloths. So from one apartment you are connecting the other apartment using some cloths, and it is not from roof to roof, but rather from the roof to the first floor, and from the other, some might be from roof to roof. So what essentially would happen is, when you observe, so you are standing here, and when you observe and when you look up, what you would essentially observe is, you will not observe all the different cloths that are being placed above you, but you will only observe the cloth that is the lowest to you. So only the below cloth, or that will be the only one which we will observe when you stand here in the street and when you look above. So you have a street, and this particular street is covered with some cloth, and the cloth is rather these are not rather uniformly covered, but these are intertwined. So you have apartments, and from one roof to another roof there is a cloth spreading, and from first floor to the roof there is another cloth that is being spread out, and these are rather done in a zigzag way, let us assume. So it has been randomly done. So when you stand in the street and look above, the cloth that will be visible to you will be the one that is the lowest. And if you assume that, assume such a condition in this plot here, so what essentially you have is, you have planes that are intertwined with each other, and so these planes at some point they intersect, and one plane will be at the lowest level in one region, and other plane will be at the lowest level in another region. So one surface will be lowest in some regions, and the other surface will be lowest at some other region. Now when you observe, when you stand here and when you observe, you will not see both blue and red surface. What you will see is the lowest one, assuming that it is opaque. So what you will see is the lowest one, and that will be blue. And when you stand here and observe, again what you will see is the lowest one, and that will be red. So based on what you observe, when you rather section this plane here, so this PT plane, when you section this plane based on what you observe, you end up something like this. So here you see blue cloth or the blue surface, and here you see the red cloth or the red surface. So what essentially you have partitioned is, based on what you observe, you have partitioned this pressure temperature plane into two, blue region and the red region. So you are observing the blue color here because it is the lowest one, and here you are observing the red because it is the lowest one. So when we rather now represent this plane in two dimensions, that is the pressure and temperature plane, or we can also consider the pressure and temperature plane. In this we just consider now the pressure and temperature plane, and when we plot this region wherein you observe the blue curve, blue surface, and the region wherein you observe the red surface, it appears something like this. You would have a region wherein you observe the blue surface, and a region wherein you observe the red surface. So this region you observe the blue surface, and in this region you observe the red surface. Now when you introduce a third surface, and this surface now could be another state of the system, say gas, then the remaining area will be, in the remaining area you will be observing that particular plane. So if we introduce a third plane, say here, so if you introduce a third plane in this region, then when you observe from these spots here, you will be what you will observe is, or when you look above from these spots here, what you will observe is the third surface, and that would correspond to this section of the pressure temperature plot. So what we essentially have is, we have certain sections in the pressure temperature plot wherein one surface is of the low value and some section wherein the other surfaces are of low values. Now, according to the second law of thermodynamics, according to what we considered here, the surface that is of the low Gibbs free energy ultimately dictates which phase would be stable at that combination of pressure and temperature. So here, in this combination of pressure and temperature, it is solid that is stable. In this combination of pressure and temperature, it is the liquid that is stable. And in this combination of pressure and temperature, what we essentially have is, we have the vapor phase that is stable. So again, this is a schematic representation. So from the expression of how the Gibbs free energy changes with respect to temperature and pressure, by considering how each individual variable affects the Gibbs free energy, we were able to arrive at a three-dimensional representation of how Gibbs free energy changes with respect to both temperature and pressure. And from that, we were able to represent. So we actually, when we translated from, or when we moved from this representation, that is the representation 1, the three-dimensional representation, to this one here. So when we moved from this representation here to this one here, what we have essentially ignored is, we have ignored the values of the Gibbs free energy. Here, this axis, this z-axis, it captures the values of the Gibbs free energy. Now, for our intents and purposes, we ignored that value. We stated, or we assumed, that all that is important to us is to understand which state or which surface assumes a minimum most Gibbs free energy. So our interest was largely on understanding the minimum Gibbs free energy. So we want just to understand which surface assumed the minimum most Gibbs free energy. And under this condition, when we were focused on this condition or imposing this condition, we were able to move from three-dimensional representation to a two-dimensional one, wherein we were able to now state which states would be stable for a given combination of pressure and temperature. Now, when we refer to this state as phases, what we are now able to state is which phase would be stable for a given combination of pressure and temperature, a given combination of the thermodynamic variables. And this is what we refer to as the phase diagram. So what phase diagram helps us understand is what would be the stable phase for a given combination of the conditions, that is pressure and temperature, and this we were able to arrive at by using this condition here. So we are no longer interested in quantifying the Gibbs free energy for a given condition, but we are interested in identifying the surface that assumes the minimal Gibbs free energy, the state that assumes the minimal Gibbs free energy. So once we have identified that state, once we have identified that section of the surface, we were able to build this phase diagram here. So now the way we arrived at this phase diagram is, we began with the simplistic two-dimensional representation to understand what is the trend in how Gibbs free energy changes with temperature and how Gibbs free energy changes with pressure. So once we realized that trend, we moved into the three-dimensional representation, wherein we collectively considered the change in the Gibbs free energy with respect to both temperature and pressure. And from that, we were able to arrive at the phase diagram that helps us understand the stable state for a given combination of pressure and temperature. So generally, this phase diagram, it again, even though this is not a quantitative phase diagram, generally your phase diagram looks something like this. Of course, this is quantitative, this is not quantitative but rather qualitative. All we need to have is the sections for the different phases that are stable for a given combination of temperature and pressure. So this would be solid, and this would be liquid, and this would be vapor. So what for? Again, we are so far considering a single component material, that is unary material. Now again, in order to arrive at this particular plot here, we considered the change in the Gibbs free energy with respect to temperature, change in the Gibbs free energy with respect to pressure, and combine these two, arrived at a three-dimensional representation of how Gibbs free energy changes with respect to temperature and pressure. From that, we arrived at the phase diagram. So the starting point was how the Gibbs free energy changes with respect to temperature and how Gibbs free energy changes with respect to pressure. So these curves were the starting point. Now the reverse can also be done, meaning from this phase diagram here, it is also possible for us to reverse our understanding and then plot how the Gibbs free energy changes as the temperature changes, how the Gibbs free energy changes as the pressure changes, assuming the other variable is constant. So that, for instance, a simple example is, we can assume the pressure here is constant, and we can consider the change in the temperature like this. So from our phase diagram, it is now possible for us to rather illustrate how the Gibbs free energy changes when we increase the temperature of a system that has this particular phase diagram. So here we have assumed the pressure is constant, the pressure is at P1. So the pressure is constant. Now we are varying the temperature as it is varied here, the temperature is varied. So this is our starting point, and this is where we end. So we are considering how the temperature, and here we have the Gibbs free energy. So we have considered the same x-axis, that is the same change in the temperature. Now under this case, it is possible for us now to rather illustrate how the curve that represents the change in the Gibbs free energy with respect to temperature for each of these phases vary. Now initially, for this temperature range here, that is till Ts. So for this temperature range here, it is the stolid phase that is constant, or stolid phase that is stable. So it means, or rather, we are considering, since we are considering the pressure P1, it is till this temperature, it is the solid phase that is constant, and beyond this temperature, or beyond this particular temperature, the solid directly changes to vapor. So what we essentially have is, if the blue line, it represents the change in the Gibbs free energy with respect to temperature for solid, it would look something like this. And now, of course, it's a curve, so it will look something like this. And now, from this point onwards, it is the vapor that is rather stable. So therefore, the change in the Gibbs free energy of the vapor would look something like this. So beyond this point, it is the vapor that is stable. So the green line represents the vapor and the blue line represents the solid. Now, on the other hand, if we are considering a pressure something like this here, see, pressure is P2. If we are considering a condition like this, what we essentially have is, we have a temperature wherein the liquid or the solid, beyond which the solid changes to liquid. So in case of here at P1, when the pressure is P1, the solid directly changes to vapor. In case of when the pressure is P2, what we have is the solid, it changes to liquid, and then the liquid changes to vapor. Now if we want to plot such a curve, that is the curve, or illustrate how the Gibbs free energy changes with respect to the temperature for the pressure when the pressure is equal to P2. So for this red line here, so for P2, then till this point here, till this point, let us assume it is Ts, till Ts, it is the solid curve, that will be the minimal most, and between TL and TS it will be the liquid curve, that will be the minimal most, and after TL it will be the vapor curve, that will be minimal most. So we have identified two different temperatures along this axis. So one temperature is TS, the other temperature is TL. Now if we represent the solid curve in this way, and the liquid curve in that case would be something like this. The liquid curve would be something like this, wherein beyond TS it is the liquid curve that is more. So beyond TS it is the liquid curve that has the lowest Gibbs free energy, and beyond TL it is the gaseous curve that has the lowest free energy. So therefore we would have a curve like this. So we have now the red curve or the blue curve, that is the solid curve, the red curve, that is the liquid curve, and the green curve, which is the vapor curve. So we have considered three different states of the system, and your phase diagram, it gives us how which phase is rather stable for a given combination of temperature and pressure. From that phase diagram we are able to rather understand how the Gibbs free energy changes, the trend in the change in the Gibbs free energy with respect to temperature by assuming a specific pressure. And we have considered all the three phases that are included in the phase diagram. We have chosen appropriate pressure, and all the three phases are being considered in this Gibbs free energy versus temperature curve. And as you can see, below the TS temperature it is the solid curve that has the lowest Gibbs free energy. Between TS and TL it is the liquid curve that has the lowest free energy, and above TL it is the vapor curve that has the lowest free energy. So based on the curves that represented change in Gibbs free energy with respect to temperature and pressure, we were able to build the phase diagram. And now we have also seen that from the phase diagram it is also possible for us to construct how the Gibbs free energy changes with respect to temperature. So it is possible, or the phase diagram works in both ways. So from the change in the Gibbs free energy with respect to the variables, from the change in the thermodynamic function with respect to its corresponding variables, we would be able to build a phase diagram, an equilibrium phase diagram. And once we are able to build the equilibrium phase diagram, we will also be from that phase diagram able to predict how the Gibbs free energy changes with respect to its variables. Now, before moving ahead, it is also important for us to consider one rather common trend that we observe when we consider this phase diagram here for the unary system. That is, often in this unary system, the phase diagram that includes or that indicates which phase is constant or which phase is stable at room temperature or combination of the thermodynamic variables. So the phase diagram that helps us understand, so the stable phases or predict the stable phases at a given combination of temperature and pressure often assumes this trend here, often it assumes this particular trend here. Now in these regions we are able to state that a given phase is rather stable. So here it is the solid phase that is stable, and here it is a liquid phase that is stable, and here it is the vapor phase that is stable. So what about these lines here? So what about these separating lines here? So these separating lines are the regions wherein both the phases are at equilibrium. So in these lines here, so if we name these lines as O, A, B and C, along the line OA, when you consider a condition that is along the line OA, then what we are essentially considering is a stable state between vapor and solid. Along OB, we are considering a stable state between a condition that represents a stable state between vapor and liquid. And when you are considering OC, what we are essentially considering is a stable state between solid and liquid. So we have the phase diagram. It comprises of a given spaces, definite spaces. In those spaces, we have the states of the system, or these spaces are represented by the stable state of the system. So for the combination of the variables, which system or which state or which phase is stable is represented by these definite spaces. And these spaces are being partitioned by lines, and these lines indicate the equilibrium between the partitioned or the spaces that they separate. So this line OC, it separate two spaces that represent liquid and solid. So therefore this OC indicates the stability between the or equilibrium between the liquid and solid. The same goes for OA. So the OA separate two different spaces that represent solid and vapor, and OA then represents the stable condition, the equilibrium between vapor and the solid, and the same goes for OC. So the phase diagram, it comprises of definite spaces, definite regions that are separated by lines. The lines indicate the equilibrium condition between the states it separates. So this line separates two different stable states, and the equilibrium condition between these two stable states are represented by these lines. The equilibrium between these two states are represented by these lines. Now this point here that is represented or that is denoted as O, it is referred to as the triple point, and in triple point all these phases are stable, or all these phases are at equilibrium. So if we rather name this triple point as, say, PO, TO, so we rather refer to this triple point as PO, TO. For this combination of temperature and pressure, all these three phases are in equilibrium with each other. So along these lines, there are two phases are in equilibrium with each other, and at the triple point O, all the three phases are in equilibrium with each other. So we have a phase diagram. The phase diagram, it helps us understand which phase is stable for a given combination of pressure and temperature, again for a unary material. And in addition to that, it also helps us understand, so the phase diagram, in addition to comprising of spaces, definite regions, it also comprises of lines. So based on that line, we can state under which condition both or two of these phases will be at equilibrium. So based or by tracking the lines, we can state under which condition will both of these phases will be at equilibrium. And by identifying a point wherein all these three lines meet, we can state under this specific condition, all the three phases that are present in the phase diagram will be at equilibrium with one another. So line, two phases are equilibrium, and at a point all the three phases are at equilibrium. Now one other trend that we observe is the trend that exists between the line here. Now in order to understand what trend that exists between this line here, we need to go back to our understanding or expression of the change in the Gibbs free energy with respect to the temperature and pressure. So let us consider just two states, that is the change in the Gibbs free energy of the liquid with and it can be expressed as minus and similarly the change in the Gibbs free energy of the solid can be expressed as. Now we are rather restricting our focus to these lines here. So we want to understand the trend in these lines here. So we are considering two states, that is the liquid. So here let us consider liquid and a vapor state. So this line OB, so liquid and a vapor state. So liquid and the vapor state, and this we are considering. We want to rather understand the trend in OB. So therefore we have considered the change in the Gibbs free energy of the liquid. So we are discussing or focusing on the trend in line OB. So we have considered the change in the Gibbs free energy of the liquid, we have expressed it, and the change in the Gibbs free energy of the vapor, and we have expressed it. So along the line OB, we have already discussed that these two phases are in equilibrium. So that means there is no difference in the Gibbs free energy. So along the line OB, since liquid and vapor are in equilibrium, what we essentially have is this relation here is satisfied. So we are attempting to rather discuss the trend in OB, and along OB both these liquid and vapor phases are in equilibrium. So that means there is no difference in the Gibbs free energy. So both these are at the lowest point, or they are the lowest in the three-dimensional representation, if you could relate. Now we have this expression, since along OB the Gibbs free energies are equal, the change in the Gibbs free energy, so we can equate these two terms here, that is be equal to now it is possible for us to rearrange these terms in such a way that we end up with an expression for dP by dt. So we are just rearranging these two expressions. Also we do have set of terms on the left hand side and the right hand side, we are rearranging it, and we are considering along the line OB, so we are considering the dP by dt at the equilibrium. So this will rather yield a difference, so it will be, so we are essentially considering dP by dt. So this is nothing but this ratio here. So change in the entropy to that of the ratio of the change in the corresponding volume. Now again it is possible for us to replace the change in the entropy, again assuming that it is not that much accessible. So for that we can go back to our expression for the Gibbs free energy, which is the canonical one, which is delta G is delta H minus D delta S. Now assuming that we are considering an equilibrium along OB, so we are considering these lines wherein there is no phase transformation, both these phases are in equilibrium, so delta G is 0, and that implies T or delta S is delta H by T. So this means the delta S can be replaced by delta H by T, so you have such an expression. Now what we essentially have here is how the pressure changes with respect to the temperature at the equilibrium condition, and it is governed by the change in enthalpy and change in volume and at a constant temperature. So you have this change in pressure with respect to temperature at equilibrium. So meaning you have a specific point wherein, or if you have a specific melting point, and this melting point changes with respect to pressure, and how it changes is what is given by this expression here. So what we are considering essentially is such lines we observe in this phase diagram. This is a schematic phase diagram, however the critical features of the phase diagram are being captured here. So this line indicates the equilibrium between the phases, and we are considering how these lines, we are rather quantifying, we are trying to rather understand the slope of this line that separates the phases, and when we do so we arrive at, or we are able to relate the slope of these lines to thermodynamic variables and functions. And so it is this combination of these variables and function that ultimately dictates the slope here, and this is what we refer to as the Clapeyron. So let me write it more legibly. Clapeyron. It is R, so Clapeyron equation. So what Clapeyron equation helps us understand is what is the trend in the line that we observe in a phase diagram that separates two phases. So this line indicates the equilibrium between the two phases, and what is the trend in this line that separates the two phases, that rather dictates the equilibrium between the two phases. What is the trend? We can understand it from the Clapeyron's relation or Clapeyron's equation, and it is rather governed by these thermodynamic variables or thermodynamic variables and function. Now the simplistic case here is, the way to understand this is, supposing we are considering two systems, just two phases, or just solid and liquid. We are considering just two phases, solid and liquid. And the equilibrium between these two phases is achieved at the melting point. So at a given melting point, we are able to establish the equilibrium between solid and liquid. So to understand this Clapeyron relation, so what Clapeyron relation gives us is dP by dt, but rather at the change in the pressure and temperature at the equilibrium. So what we essentially have is, so this is what Clapeyron's relation helps us quantify. So in order to understand what this Clapeyron's expression means, let us consider just a change in the state of a given system from solid to liquid. So we have one state changing to another state, and now we are maintaining the temperature at the melting point, wherein both solid and liquid are in stable state. Now this melting point changes as the pressure changes. So that is what we observe in the phase diagram. So for a constant pressure, this would be the melting point. So this would be the melting point for a pressure P1. However, as the pressure changes, the melting point changes. So as the pressure changes, the melting point changes. So the melting temperature is dependent on pressure. So with the pressure, the melting temperature, the melting point changes. How the melting point changes with respect to the pressure is what is governed by, or is what can be understood by from the Clapeyron's relation. So the Clapeyron's relation, it helps us understand the equilibrium condition between the two phases and how it changes with the change in one of the two variables. So the Clapeyron condition, it is focused on these lines, and we are understanding how it changes. It helps us understand how a given equilibrium condition changes when one of the variable changes. So with this, we will wind this lecture up, and so far what we have considered is, we have considered extensively the phase diagram, and in that what are the different aspects of the phase diagrams represent. So we have a triple point, we have a line and the specific regions, and we saw what are these aspects of the phase diagram, what these aspects of the phase diagram represents. And now ultimately we were able to rather understand the trend in the line that separates the phases, the line that indicates the equilibrium between the two phases. So that equilibrium between the two phases, the line that indicates the equilibrium between two phases, the slope of this line is rather dictated by, or it can be understood by, the Clapeyron's relations. So we will build on this in the subsequent lecture. Goodbye.